Welcome back to 5, 4 and 3, the videos where I give you 5 reasons for reading a book or series and 3 reasons why maybe it's not for you. This week we're going to be doing The Demon Cycle, the Painted/Warded Man, and all of its sequels by Peter V. Brett. A really dark, gritty horror series with a lot of fun thrown in as well. I've read this series 3 times, just recently completing my third read through in time for The Desert Prince, which is a sequel series taking place about 20 years later. We're going to get into the pros and cons now, but first I just want to ask you all to like and subscribe, and have a look at some of my previous 5, 4 and 3s. Can anyone else hear that beeping? I've gone insane. Synopsis for The Demon Cycle. It's hard to get into too much of what happens in the series without creating spoilers for the first book. However, what I will say is it's been centuries since the Demon Scourge returned from the center of the planet, and they've been ripping apart humanity, and now very little of it remains. Humanity discovered defensive wards that allow them to hide behind warded shelters at night, keeps them safe from demons, but these wards aren't perfect, and humanity is still slowly losing some of its last survivors. Even the large cities aren't fully safe. There are no more offensive wards. There's no way to actually fight the demons. And the story follows a young boy named Arlen Bales who wants to learn everything he can about wards and, if possible, rediscover ways of fighting the demons. This is the sort of series where none of the characters make any good decisions. What they do make, however, are the correct decision for them at the time based on their lives so far. And the incredible amount of detail that's gone into creating the characters' backstories from when they were a child to where they are now is integral to what they actually end up doing. And when you retrieve your book from the corner of the room you've thrown it into, you can truly empathize with them and understand their terrible decision making. The level of detail that Mr. Brett has put into building the demons from the ground up is impressive, to say the least. Bank demons, wood demons, wind demons, flame demons, lightning demons, air demons, water demons, field demons, clay demons, sand demons, and a few other types of demons that I won't mention for spoiler purposes. Every single one of them is painted firmly in the reader's mind, and a few of them will enjoy your mind a little too much. The world building done by Mr. Brett is on a truly masterful, epic scale. When you have a dozen demons to create from the ground up and stick in the mind of your reader, not to mention a written language that's integral to the plot that you can't actually use the characters for in the story, and a separate culture to create that's integral, that has 3,000 years of deviation from everywhere else in the world, that you have to describe the culture for, the language, the layout, the magics, and that have had heavy religious indoctrination that you need to fully allow the reader to understand everything of, because they need to in order to get what's going on. All that and a story to write, use of prose and descriptive words become of paramount importance. And Mr. Brett does this fantastically. There's no need for big exposition dumps for the narrator to sit the reader down and go, right, this is how this works, this is how this works. We're taught it smoothly and fluidly over the course of the first few books, and by the end of the third book, you can understand the Crazian language used perfectly. We'll get into more on the Crazian language later, but it's masterfully done. The opening scene of the first book is of a village cluster being destroyed overnight by demons. About 20 people dead, and we see the rest of the village show up in order to search through the bodies of their friends and families for survivors and anything salvageable. The language used here is so casual and offhand, and it's just one of those, this sort of thing happens in this world. moments that really cement the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness that will stay with you throughout all 5 books. The language is so uniform and regimental that children are helping in the search, because that's just the way the world works. A common mistake by fantasy authors is to give their main characters a huge amount of powers towards the end of the first book and then laugh manically as they decimate all the bad guys. They then find it hard to have somewhere to go from there. In the second and third books, then they will try to find ways to weaken their characters in order to give them more of a challenge. You don't see that here. The characters gain a bit of power each book to allow for stronger and stronger enemies that they will always be fighting from as an underdog. This keeps the sense of danger that was established in the opening scene of the first book and allows it to remain throughout the series. The characters gain more power to attract stronger demons that they can then learn from and have stronger magics, and then attract even stronger demons, and so on and so on. The power gain is done so well and so smoothly throughout the series, and not just in one field, because each character has their own individual strengths and fields to study in. You might hear that this series is full of graphic sex scenes and think to yourself, hey, bonus. And sure. And I've said before that what might be a bonus to some people is a negative for others, and vice versa. And that remains the case here. I don't particularly have a problem with sex scenes so long as they're done well. And that is the case for a lot of people. But this series, especially books 2, 3, and 4, are quite heavy with sex scenes. They're quite vivid and graphically and well described. So if you're into that sort of thing, this is the series for you. But if you're not, well, maybe it's best you stay away, and certainly don't let any children read the series. The demons are bad enough. You don't want to teach them about the birds and the bees. Well, you do, but later. That's a whole different thing. A big chunk of this story is given over to the Crasians and the Crasian people, in particular their language. Their language is used throughout the series, but it gets denser and denser as time goes on, to the point where you have a 10-page dictionary at the end of each book, containing the translation for their words, be it their word for demon, alagai, their word for clerics, dharma, their word for gay people, pushting, and it can get quite a lot, especially when you're in the Crasian sections of the story. If you haven't been following, or perhaps you left after the second book and went off to read something else and then came back, you could find yourself constantly flicking back to the glossary in order to find out what the hell people are talking about. And this is a particular problem for the audiobook readers who don't have the advantage of the glossary at the back containing all the words. They might have to have a little printout with them, or they have to read the entire thing in one go in order to make sure that they are actually understanding what's happening. This isn't such a huge difference from other fantasy books. Most of them have their own languages or their own mentions of words, or their own mentions of certain words in certain languages. But I found it thicker in the Demon Cycle than in just about any other series I've read. This series starts to slow down, particularly during book 4. We've been taking its eyes off what could be described as the main goal of the series, and not touching on it or its most favorite characters until about midway through book 5. This creates some pacing problems, especially in a series that, in my opinion, this is my just opinion, the story doesn't really begin until a third of the way through book 2, with everything up to that point being a backstory and setup for the characters. While it's incredibly well done, it can cause the story to drag in certain places, and I always find that around the middle of book 4 and the beginning parts of book 3. In conclusion, Demon Cycle is a dark, gritty series with plenty of extremely well-written characters. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with what I've said here today. We'll be doing another 5, 4, and 3 next Sunday. And then at some point this week, I'm going to try and upload something new. Have a lovely rest of your day.